Hello, boys and girls. Welcome along. We are on the verge of the Pro Tour final of Kuala Lumpur here in Malaysia. Whatever time of day or night it is with you, we are so glad you are with us live to experience what could be an incredible, historic matchup. On the one side, you've got Mario Pascoli. I'm glad to say he's got a bunch of Italian supporters in the auditorium, because you've got to feel, Bill, there's going to be a lot of people supporting the other guy. And the other guy is Johnny Magic, John Finkel.
Absolutely. It's like we said in the Marcio Carvalho-John Finkel matchup. There's a lot of players who are just rooting for their hero who they've been with since they grew up, and that's John Finkel. I have a feeling that Mario Pascoli could be the guy who beat John Finkel, regardless of whether he wins his Pro Tour or not, and that would be the title he'd be known with instead of just the guy who was Pro Tour champion in Kuala Lumpur. Still, you can't take anything away from the fact that this Italian has come a long way. He drafted a very solid deck. He's played some very tight games, had a matchup that was very heavily in his favor in the semifinals, won the first two games quite handily, lost the next two games, and instead of getting frustrated and letting it get to him and going on tilt and passing up the opportunity to play in the finals, he tightened it up for the final fifth game and managed to pull through. So as good as John Finkel is, and as much as people are rooting for him, can't take anything away from his opponent, Mario Pascoli. Really a solid player so far this weekend.
Now, we did see that Pascoli, having gone 2-up in his semi-final against Ming Shi from China, when he came out to 2-all, it looked like he was really genuinely despondent, similar to Nico Herzog in his quarterfinal, but in his case with errors. Pascoli just unhappy with how things had panned out. And that moment where Pascoli took his glasses off, rubbed the face, time to get in the game, and then came out, and to be fair, I mean, the cards were there in abundance for him, Chandra repeatedly, so can't argue with that, but you still have to play the cards, and if you think you're going to lose, no, it doesn't really matter what the cards are, you find a way to lose. That's one of the big truths about Magic. There is always a way to lose. There isn't always a way to win, but there's always a way to lose. If you in your head want to lose, you can make sure that happens, and the number of times you see people throw away key matches because basically in their heads they've already lost, and the cards are just the way of keeping score.
Absolutely. It's a big difference between the pros and the people who haven't quite made it yet, and we saw yesterday on Friday with day one, Olivier Rouel started out 0-2, back against the wall, any more losses and he's out, shows up to his feature match for round 3, opponent is a no-show, let the pressure get to him and just decided not to make it. And so you've seen that with throughout the weekend, and with Pascoli here, went up 2 games, went down 2 games, didn't let it get to him, got that 5th game. The mentality is such a key element to this very intelligent, difficult, challenging game.
All right, so here is the matchup. John Finkel with blue-white, largely white, just a little bit of blue for some key spells like Distant Melody, Pestamite. We've seen both of those used extremely effectively. He is looking to rush people. He rushed Guillaume Wafatapa 3-0. Then he dropped a game in his semi-final, but now here he is in the final, up against a black-red deck with quite a lot of low-cost monsters. They're not necessarily the greatest monsters, and probably they're less good than Finkel's early drops, but they are early drops. And so the Kithkin deck is going to find it potentially quite difficult to get in that early damage. And then you add the fact that Pascoli has all that removal.
Yep, absolutely. I think this matchup is so tight and so close, it's difficult to predict a clear winner. If I had to flip a coin, I'd say John Finkel, but I'm not sure if that's because I want to see John Finkel win after the being inducted into the Hall of Fame, or because I truly believe it. Just such a close match.
All right, boys and girls, button up, fasten your seatbelts. It's time for the final of Pro Tour Kuala Lumpur. Here we go. Welcome to Kuala Lumpur. It is Pro Tour Malaysia 2008. It is the last duel of the weekend. 2 players remain. 352 have gone home. And Mario Pascali of Italy, the reigning Italian champion, 2004 and 2007, faces John Finkel. There is Pascali, and he has made a first-turn play. Could not go better for him. It's a Flamekin harbinger, because just like in the last round, Finkel's opponent will be looking to stabilize and get themselves into the game. So that is Pascali on your screen right there, holding himself together, came through a difficult quarterfinal against Chinese Ming Shi. And facing him across the cardboard chasm, the red zone of doom, it's John Finkel. It is incredible to think that you are watching not one of our lunchtime entertainments in between the semi-finals and the final, but this is live, this is happening right now, and you are looking at one of the greatest contributors to Magic the game has ever seen. So we are underway in the best 3 out of 5 final. It seems a long time ago, Bill, that these 2 guys plus 6 more great players sat down to draft Lorwyn, Morningtide, and they've come up with these 2 decks.
Yep, absolutely. And John did have to start this game with a mulligan, but it looks like his opponent has come out with a pretty good start for slowing him down. John missing a 2-drop there, that's pretty shocking. Things not looking good for him so far. The thing about Mario Pascoli's deck, as we've said over and over again, it's got so much removal, very, very solid on that, and its creature base is a little weak. In this matchup, that might not matter that much as long as he's got some bodies in the way. John, of course, led with his Mosquito Guard, and Mario Pascoli had Flamekin Harbinger for one of his big beaters, which is the 5/3 Berserker.
Yep, and Pascali there, he's got Eye Blight's Ending, he's also got Makeshift Mannequin, he's got Changeling Berserker, he's got plenty of stuff going on in his hand, and we're not quite sure what Finkel's got at the moment. He looks, draws a card.
Interesting play there from Pascoli. Opted to use the 3 mana to take out the Mosquito Guard, decides, you know what, I'm on the beatdown, let's get this started.
Yep.
Go ahead.
John misses a 3-drop.
Here we are, Pestamite in the upkeep, fair enough.
Never doubt the pros. Never doubt the pros.
Certainly not this one.
No.
Alright, so Pascali comes. And there we go. Pascali's thinking, am I turning these people sideways? Yes, I am. I'm turning both Flamekin Harbinger and Sunfire Shaman into the red zone.
It's actually in his benefit to trade here, just because as long as John's not attacking, then Mario's ahead.
Yes.
Scott Johns, reporting from the floor, pointed out some interesting statistics. John Finkel has made something like 11 top 8s, has only lost in the finals once. That, of course, was at L.A. against his Antarctica teammate, Steve O'Mahony Schwartz, who won during the Urza Saga draft with an amazing mono-black deck featuring at least 1 copy of Pestilence, if memory serves. So the numbers do not favor Mario Pascoli here. Of course, he's on his way to setting some new numbers, perhaps, and setting a new a statistic for how often Mario Pascoli loses in the finals of a Pro Tour.
Yeah, because he's looking at kind of, well, never seems like the correct answer to him right now. And he has really made a good start. We've now got a Firebelly Changeling joining the Sunfire Shaman there.
Both of them showed up a little bit by the Kifkin Zephyronaut and the Harrier that John Finkel just played. That Zephyronaut is probably something that Pascoli is going to try to burn before it turns into that Sarah Angel. Firebelly Changeling I like from Pascoli in this matchup simply because for a 2-drop, on his 3rd turn he can play a second 2-drop like the Sunflare Shaman with a 3rd land and play that mountain, and that still lets him trade with a Kinsvale Skirmisher or an unenhanced Kifkin Greatheart, or many of the other creatures that John can play. So that's definitely an important card for him to have, particularly if he's got the mountains to support it in those early turns.
So Kifkin Zephyronaut and Gold Meadow Harrier on the Finkel side of the board for the USA across the Atlantic from Italy. Mario Pascoli, Sunfire Shaman, Firebelly Changeling, top left, 4 mana from Pascoli.
There's a Changeling Berserker.
So that's the 5/3. And what does he choose to champion here?
It's an interesting option. You know, Firebelly Changeling is the more aggressive creature compared to the Sunflare Shaman, just in regards to attack stats. But the Sunflare Shaman provides for some really interesting situations in which it's a removal spell. It deals, it could potentially 2-for-1, and it looks like he's going to go ahead and remove the Firebelly Changeling, keeping the Sunflare Shaman potentially as a removal spell for the Harrier, or even to create those 2-for-1s, as I stated later.
All right, well, we talked earlier about the idea of Ming Shi being the first potential Chinese Pro Tour champion, but if memory serves, this will be the first Italian Pro Tour champion. I'm just having a look down here. There's an awful lot of France and Japan and the USA and, various European nations, but Italy is missing from this list, unless I've missed someone part of a team, for example, but I don't think so. I think that Pascali is on the verge of not just personal history, but national history.
Yep, and Antonino De Rosa from the crowd says that's correct. Of course, we saw him as with a shot at the championship for the first Italian Pro Tour champion back in Prague in 2005.
That's right, and Antonino De Rosa currently level 5, back-to-back Nats appearances in the US, 3 in a row, 05 to 07. That's a pretty remarkable achievement in itself.
It's something that, so often we look at people who are champions and have won the championship, and we don't necessarily look at just top 8s and raw numbers like that, but a back-to-back-to-back Nationals appearance plus winning one of those, especially when it's in a place like the US where Nationals has traditionally been pretty tough, that's pretty impressive.
Yep, absolutely. US Nats, a serious tournament. Almost like, in a sense, the extra Pro Tour to an extent.
For a long time, yeah.
All right.
So John decides to tap down the Changeling Berserker. Not doing much with his mana. I'm kind of surprised to see he's not playing more creatures than he is. But like we said, he took that mulligan. Gets to hit for 4 this turn on his Kithkin Zephyronaut if he decides to. It's got Vigilance. Drew Kinsbale Skirmisher.
Is there an element here to which John can say, well, look, I know you have Thundercloud Shaman around. I don't want to overextend. I actually want to see whether my Kithkin Zephyronaut can actually go an awful long way to dealing with this thing, because over time it's going to be a 4/4 flyer, and there's not that many hits I need to do with this. Here I come, 4, thank you very much. For 5, of course, because of the skirmisher. So Pascali down to 13. And actually, Finkel perhaps doesn't need to do the traditional, here's 4, 5, 6 guys.
Overwhelm. I think he probably actually does want to overextend.
Okay.
Even when an opponent has a Wrath, like with the Thundercloud Shaman, with the Changeling Berserker in play, sometimes you just have to say, there's nothing I can do about it. If I give him more turns to draw it by holding back my creatures so that I can rebuild after it, you're just going to cause yourself a lot of hurt, particularly when that Sunflare Shaman is going to slowly build up a critical mass of elementals in the graveyard and simply kill the 2/2 Zephyronaut.
All right, fair enough.
So...
Already got 1 elemental in the graveyard with that Flamekin Harbinger. Oh, looks like he's going to activate to kill the Harrier.
Yes.
We'll see what John's got here.
Is he going to perhaps surge? No. Says okay, it's dead.
He does have the bounce spell for a creature that he could potentially have in hand and then use on the 1/1 to save it. It's all a question of whether or not he thinks it's more valuable. At this point in time, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he thought the Zephyronaut was more important.
Yes.
Thank you.
So there's 5 power coming down, and Finkel goes for double block, and this, of course, means there we are, as you say, he's got Disperse up, Mana up, and the Disperse in hand. So that's what we're expecting any minute.
3 and
3 to the Zephyronaut, 2 to the Skirmisher, and John says, I'll have the Zephyronaut back because that's a route to victory right now.
Yep. Does give his opponent the Firebelly Changeling back, but of course that's not that significant a concern. It looks like Pascoli might only have a basic land in his hand. We can't see everything perfectly. He's got 2 cards, I believe. One of them looks to be a land. That could prove difficult. One of the weaknesses with Pascoli's deck, and granted it's a strong deck, is that he doesn't have many ways to recoup the cards that he spends. So his strategy of going 1 for 1 with his removal and then playing a large creature like the Berserker and getting in doesn't always pan out if he happens to hit a glut of the wrong types of spells when he needs them.
Sure, so there was Bright Half Banneret turned out to be the other card in Pascali's hand. And now Finkel goes, well, okay, here I come again with the Zephyronaut we've seen before and Kithkin Greatheart. Pascali, Changeling Hero. Changeling Berserker, I beg your pardon.
With the makeshift mannequin, John just needs to find a way to target it to get it back into the graveyard.
Just wants to say boo to it, really, and off it'll go.
He does have a couple live draws with the Kinsbale Skirmishers. You got to remember, they're not just offensive creatures with that makeshift mannequin token. He could take those out, take the Berserker out with him.
So Pascali at 13, Finkel at 10.
Pretty close to lethal damage there, I believe. We've got 5 from the Berserker and up to 3 from the Firebelly Changeling.
Another 4. He's got 4 mountains in play there, so That would be 5, wouldn't it? So.
Well, the Fire Belly Changeling does have a restriction, so you can only pump it twice.
Is that right? Okay. All right, so... Right.
It's going to block the Fire Belly, perhaps, maybe not. Thinking about it.
What?
Mario's considering his plays. John's, of course, tapped out, so he won't be having any more combat tricks for this turn.
So what's Mario thinking here?
It's always tough to tell, you know. Some players are thinking about getting some ice cream from the food court downstairs, but he might be thinking about the outs that John has on his turn and whether or not he's at risk of potentially dying.
On the backswing.
Yeah, that's not a very big concern for him at 13 life. John doesn't have anything that could kill him. But he might be looking at whether or not he should pump for whatever reason, or just what his next play is going to be, or potentially bluffing to make John think he has things to think about when he's just sitting on the plane.
With his one hand and one card, and we're pretty certain that's a land, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing from Finkel.
Draws for the turn and passes back, holding the Zephyr. And Zephyrnaut's going to have to block.
Yep, and there it goes. And Finkel just puts it in the bin. John at 5.
Yep.
Pascali brings out War Spike Changeling.
Yep, John says, yep.
John says, no, I'm done. That was pretty comprehensive, but a pretty odd game, Bill, all round.
Yeah, it was a little bit. John did start down a card with that mulligan, and that allowed Pascoli's early threat drop hand to make sure that his opponent didn't get out of the way. And when you see John miss drops early like he did, it just does not spell good news for his deck at all. We saw against one of his opponents earlier where he was able to, against Yamwafotapa, take advantage of the fact that there was, a controlled deck and miss a couple drops and still come out ahead. But against Pascoli, who's a bit more aggressive despite being a controlled deck, that's not going to be the case.
No, and not only against Wafotapa, the deck was somewhat misbehaving against Carvalho as well. And now again, we're seeing a mulligan. But the thing is, a lot of newer players, they're very scared of mulligans. I know I certainly was for a very long time. And eventually, I think it may have been a Zvi article that I read, and it was just so straightforward about saying, which would you rather do? Be pretty certain you're going to lose with 7, or just start a game with 6? And when you start putting it like that, why on earth would you keep the 7?
Yep.
So there is no shame in mulliganing. There's no sense of failure. In fact, it's one of the great strategic tools that the better players have to gain an edge, because sooner or later, everyone ends up with the wrong amount of land and spells in their opening hand.
Absolutely, and there are times where mulligans can actually be to your advantage. At Grand Prix Columbus earlier this year, Flash Hulk was a very popular deck. And I used Serum Powder and Leyline of the Void to give me 4 free additional mulligans with the Serum Powder to guarantee that I opened on that Leyline of Void against those decks. Mulliganing is such a critical element of the game and such an important aspect of premier play, players who understand how to do that. And John, again, in that match, in that game, was on the draw. So even if he's down, quote-unquote, a card, he's actually got the draw step to get him back into the game.
You mentioned Flash Hulk in Legacy at Grand Prix Columbus, which Steve Sadin won. Now, how did you get on there, Bill, in fact?
How did I get on?
Yeah, in terms of playing it at that event. Where did you finish?
I lost to Steve in the top 4.
In the top 4, so you made the semi-final of the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty sweet. I finished 273rd at Pro Tour London in 1999 once.
But you got to play in the Pro Tour.
I certainly did. Absolutely. And Philadelphia. Very fine. I think I won a game there as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we're heading towards Game 2. The games, we are not expecting to take that much of a time. So if you've got matchsticks under your eyes and you're thinking, can I really hang out for a 5-game final? Yes, you can. You really can, because these decks are going to go pretty swiftly at each other, and it's going to be pretty apparent whether the Kifkin can swarm over against these early drops of Pascali. And Finkel's got a lot to think about there. Pascali, 2 games away from being a champion.
Absolutely. It was interesting, I noticed when they were sideboarding that they were taking cards out of the sleeves from their main deck and putting the new sideboard cards in there. Some pros, tip for those watching at home, will keep their cards sideboarded in sleeves in their sideboard so that they can simply put them into the deck, shuffle it together, and not indicate how many cards they sided into to the opponent. It's not as relevant and limited, but you could potentially board in 2 sleeve cards from the sideboard to make it look like you're boarding a bunch against your opponent and just take those cards back out as you look back through without them knowing. John, of course, on the play in this second game.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to say what could be sweeter if you're going to win a Pro Tour. I mean, I'd just quite happily win a Pro Tour, but what could be better than, as you said, Bill, much earlier in the piece, to be, quote, the man who beat Finkel?
Yep. It adds an air of considerable legitimacy to the young Mario Pascoli, simply because he's a name that a lot of people weren't familiar with, but you can't call him a no-name when he beats a guy like John Finkel in the finals.
There's a discussion about mulliganing. Again, we got a great shot of Pascali's opening hand. 2 mountains and 5 spells.
It's low end against your deck.
He says no good against your deck, and that's one of the other things. Mulligan shift, they're not just about I have 5 land 2 spells, or the other way around, or 1 and 6. There are times you keep 1 land and 6 spells if you're going to come streaming out the gate, stalwart into stalwart, into Gold Meadow Harrier or something, and just depending on the matchup, it completely changes just the subtlety of where the line comes for mulligans.
Right. Absolutely well put, Rich.
Thank you.
Pascoli with a pen in his mouth. I don't know if that's a nervous tick of his or just something that he's accustomed to doing.
I think it's kind of better when it's just in the mouth rather than sort of doing the whole dancing thing with the pen, almost like a poker chip, and you're just like, someone wants to reach out and just like place the hand on the table and say, stop it, stop it. All right. Game 2.
No 1 drop from either player.
Plains from Finkel, Mountain from Pascali. Turn 2, Island for Finkel.
Go.
Skirmisher.
Skirmisher giving itself +1/+1.
I'm sure he would have preferred to start on the gold medal stalwart, but keeping this hand, he was obviously happy with it. If this is a Firebelly changeling, John will be able to get in for free.
There we go.
Let's see what the 2 drop's going to be. Oh, no, it's the
It's
Banneret.
the Bright Hearth Banneret.
Could be a big play for the Italian player, just because it will allow him to get on the board with more creatures faster, but we'll have to see.
In comes the Kinspell Skirmisher.
Your turn.
Finkel passes the turn. Are we going to see an upkeep moment? We are indeed. There's Pestamite. And
Take him out.
Yeah.
float the mana, says Pascali. So he's going to avoid getting shoved out of this turn, mana-wise. And
He gets to float it into all the way through his draw step before it'll empty, but it doesn't look like he's going to.
flash out the Skirmisher.
Yep. Could
Clash.
we see why he didn't want to draw? Got a card he didn't want, so he's going to clash that to the bottom.
Yep.
Sorry, wait.
Sorry.
The seating thing you put on the bottom? Sure. Yeah.
Just checking what was there.
And I
Finkel
take 3.
sends away. 3 points to Finkel off the clash.
Surprised he didn't hit the flyer, but he knows something.
In we go.
So,
Does Pascoli have Pepper Smoke?
Yes, he does indeed. He's got Shard Volley, Pepper Smoke, and Tarfire all at 1.
Okay, could be representing the Pepper Smoke then by lash outing on the 2/2 instead of the 2/1 that has evasion.
Sure. Avian Changeling comes down for John Finkel. And there's Tarfire, just the single mountain. Are we going to see some more land, though, from Pascali? He's still sitting at 2. Even with the Bright Heart. There we are. Okay, that's a 3rd. And with the Banneret, things are looking much sweeter now. Comes the mountain and Firebelly Changeling.
In Pascoli's defense, his opponent only has 1 plains and 3 islands. Islands, of course, he's only playing 5 in the whole deck. There's the second plains.
In with the Pestamite.
John would probably love to have Moldrifter right now. We might. There it is.
Oh,
What a
nice.
great
You
play.
called it. Absolutely. Retool, reload, another flyer. A little more pressure now for Pascaline.
Such a great card. Moldrifter was one of the universal considerations as first pick coming into this weekend, although I did talk to Jacob Van Loonen early on Friday, and he said Moldrifter has lost a little bit of respect for him just because of the nature of the aggressive format. John Finkel, not afraid to shy away from drawing cards and getting a 2-2 for free. We'll see what the attack's going to be from the Italian player. Get in with the Fire Belly, which could potentially change for the Moldrifter, but John quickly with the no block.
Before damage.
Before damage.
Smoke here.
And there it is. Pepper Smoke, the Pestamite.
Draw.
John sends that packing. We get a draw because, of course, the Shapeshifter activates, triggers rather, the Pepper Smoke.
Those count as a fairy,
Yes, you want.
and a goat, and a goblin, and a giant.
Yep.
Uh-oh, he's going to start unloading here. Sunflare Shaman
He
and
is.
Soul Ray Flamekin.
Wow.
That was red, well
You coming
spent.
first, one?
2.
That Banneret's been rather fine this game.
I drew for the
Yeah.
3 mana, drew a card, killed a guy, made 2 guys. 3 mana, that seems a very good deal, Devon Lowe. What were you doing?
Poor Devin gets blamed for everything.
Oh, he loves it. So there's Kithkin Harbinger for John Finkel. What does he go get here? Does he just search out the Wizened Sen? That's kind of the standard marquee card in his deck that he can search out for, or is there something else specific that he might find? Looks like he's just checking his hand, but looks like he's going for the Sen. Yep, there it is.
Yep. To get ahead here, he's going to need some help because he could be on the back foot here pretty soon. I think he's going to follow up with the Kitkin Zephyronaut, which of course will hit for 4 next turn, and then 5 as he presumably plays the pre-combat Wizensen. But he's
Also,
still facing a pretty significant.
Having said that, though, the Kithkin Harbinger has quite a body on him.
Yes.
It's a very dull, but it starts off at 1-3. The Wizened Sen would make it 2-4, and that is going to start eating through Pascali's army if Pascali comes in without tricks.
Sure, but it can only eat so far because that Sunflare Shaman will munch it right back as soon as it's gone through a couple troops. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Sunflare eat that Kithkin Zephyronaut, though.
All right. A tentative attack step from Pascali. Goes in with the Firebelly Changeling. No blocks. Pascali has Makeshift Mannequin in hand. He has Shard Volley in hand. And one other spell.
Shard Volley, not a great card to have right here, simply because he can't really afford to pay the resource of the land in order to get it in play.
No, that's certainly true. And there's...
If I had to guess, I'd say that's the Seething Path Blazer.
Yes, it is. Yep.
He's got a number of in
Yes,
this
it
deck.
is. And there we
He's
are.
going to go ahead and use the...
Zephyronaut's gone.
Yeah.
Me too.
I'm not sure if that play doesn't make John Finkel happy.
Yeah, you don't want to make John Finkel happy.
No
Not
one
if
wants
you want to win.
Yeah, no one wants to lose their little dragon there, but getting that removal spell out of the hand and putting his opponent down to 2 lands, pretty big play. Look to John to see what he's going to do.
So this is the Sen, presumably. So now we're at 2-4 for the Harbinger.
Is he going to get in with the Elemental, the Moldrifter?
Saunter across for a cheeky 2 through the air.
Moldrifter, what a great name. Whenever you open that card, you really do have to drift over whether or not you're going to mull, because you get the 3rd land you need. That thing's going to put you right to the gas that you need.
Absolutely. So John passes the turn. He passes up the opportunity to go in with the Muldrifter. Says, no, right now I'm kind of thinking a little bit of stabilization is the order of business.
Are we going to see a 2-land opponent put John Finkel down 0-2 at the finals of a Pro Tour?
Oh, wow. It's hard to know what the most amazing bit of that sentence would be.
Yep.
John got a grip full of cards. Certainly got some action for his opponent.
The thing is, although Mario doesn't have many cards, should he get the land in business, they are actually quite business spells.
Yeah.
He's got Shard Volley and Makeshift Mannequin in hand, we know.
Well, he just played the Shard Volley to deal with the Kithkin Zephyr
Yep.
But he does still have that Makeshift Mannequin, so Sunflare Shaman, for example, that got him a 2-for-1, would then potentially be able to get him a 4-for-1.
Wow.
Or 4-for-2, rather.
Mm-hmm.
He'll need a second source of black for that to come up, but he's got time right now. Life total stand at 14-12 with Finkel in the lead. Pascoli's considering his combat step. I'm sorry, 13-12. I was an English major. Math is my game.
Yeah, I hear you. I think now might be the time to have a little sneak peek at Antonio De Rosa's prediction. Let's have a look at what we've got down here. His predictions in the final, I'll give him that. Wow. All right. Unlike Pierre Canali's prediction, sorry, no Guillaume Wafatapa in the final for him.
Pascoli came up with a swamp there. He's a mana away from being able to make Shift Mannequin, though that might not be that relevant just yet.
Skirmisher. Big skirmisher.
Yep.
And now he feels the Muldrifter can come in.
Yep. The 3/3.
9. Your turn.
Passes the turn after dropping his opponent down to 9. Pascoli draws a card, pulls the pen out of his mouth. I don't know if that's a tell. Got the 4th land, so mana troubles for Pascoli look to be about over.
Mm-hmm.
Finkel, on the other hand, has got 6 lands, kind of a bit of a flood. Looks like he's got 3 cards in his hand.
And again, this is turning out to be a slightly unusual match in that you've got a bunch of guys on the left-hand side of your screen as you look for the Italian, but they're not particularly attacking or directly threatening. Mm-hmm. On the right-hand side, the allegedly aggressive deck is broadly building up quite an army of defense, essentially, while he's kind of nibbling away with this 2/2 flyer. Pascali's at 9, Finkel at 13. We're clearly well into the mid, maybe even the late game, and yet the life totals are both high, and there's no real sense that either player has really got an edge here.
No, Finkel has to consider this combat step carefully, simply because the Pathblazer can get very large if he were to not block. All the creatures he has in play, all the creatures Pascoli has in play, are elementals. That could pump it up as much as 2, 4, 6, 8, making it a 10-2, and then, of course, Sunflare Shaman could activate targeting John Finkel for at least as much damage as elementals are in play that he would sacrifice, plus whatever's in the graveyard. So John can't afford to not block here without having a trick. He's going to put 2 creatures in front of the Pathblazer. Interesting choice. Could potentially send both of them to the graveyard. The Pathblazer also gets first strike when you sack elementals to it, so that will actually probably see it still being alive at the end of this combat step.
Right.
Bob?
Pascali looks and says, yep, my banneret's done its job for now, thank you, so it goes to the bin. Now he thinks again.
Almost looked like he was going to bin that Soulbright Flamekin as well.
Absolutely. It was a kind of half move, wasn't it? It's the sort of thing like in chess, you'd say, you moved it. But the touch rule, absolutely fine. You can move your deck chairs about on the Titanic anytime you like.
Yep, he is going to go ahead and move, quote-unquote, all in on that 2/2.
Wait.
Oh,
Those are all your
Oh, wait, says John.
No more.
Those aren't
cards
words
too?
you want to hear.
I have to.
Yes, thank you for doing your best. Now it's my turn. Last guy I heard say that was at Worlds when Patrick Chapin against Gabriel Nassif, after that astonishing Game 4, got to Game 5 and went, and now it's my turn. And there is John with
Coordinated Barrage.
Coordinated Barrage.
What a great play. And such a heads-up pro play is letting his opponent think that he's going to get a potential trade 2 worse creatures for 2 good creatures of John's on the board, and instead just decimates his own board advantage.
Yeah.
Again, a game that seemed like it might be slipping into John Finkel's grip, right back into it.
Yeah, and that screen you're looking at there, you can just see the gaping hole on Pascoli's side of the board where all those nice monsters used to be.
Yep. Monster draw there with Distant Melody.
Oh.
Potentially drawing 3 cards off that.
I would like to retool, please, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind.
Yep.
And it's hard to imagine what Pascali does about that. I guess maybe
Sunflare,
he
the,
decides to make it as small as possible.
Yep. Plus get rid of one of the more aggressive creatures on the board. That's a good play, but even John is a little bit happy to see that, simply because that Sunflare Shaman, as we saw in one of the Italian players' earlier matches, can potentially cause a win out of nowhere. So not having that on the board is actually pretty helpful, because he no longer has to count how many elementals are in the graveyard. John doesn't hesitate, brings them all in. Firebelly Changeling could trade with the 2/2 Skirmisher or the Kithkin Harbinger, barring no shenanigans from John Finkel. He's going to block the Skirmisher, looks like, and pump twice.
Okay, sure.
That's going to get 3 damage in.
Everything.
Yep. John's going to trade the Skirmisher for the Firebelly Changeling. Seems like a good trade for him. Leaves him with a Kithkin Harbinger and a Mole Drifter, well ahead on cards and with something to play after combat.
Yeah,
Wisenson.
Senzer.
Or Senzer,
Yep.
excuse me, yeah.
Yes, sir.
So we're back with Finkel, and Pascali has removal, but he's got 3 monsters to face.
Yep.
And here they come.
I think so.
He's got effects
And
before
he's saying,
combat.
yeah, I think I'd like to do something here. And the something is...
Also. Violet Pile, if I had to guess. Yep.
All right. And John says, I'm going to have...
Oh, wow.
Oh, and
Yeah, that'll
scoop
draw,
up.
yeah.
And I don't know whether you can hear on our effects microphones, but out in the hall there is a lot of excitement there as Johnny Magic evens it up at 1 game apiece.
I noticed the Italian players weren't clapping for that one.
Well, can you blame them? Bless them. All right, so we're running out of time clearly because we've got at best 3 more duels of this Pro Tour. So let's give you some of the big names just so you don't miss out on where they finished. Olivier Ruel finished in 67th place. He annihilated his brother Antoine Ruel by 2 places, who finished 69th. Moving further down, Takuya Osamu of Japan was 78th. Into the 80s, you find Carlos Romão of Brazil, and the US's Sam Stein, a top 8er from Valencia. He was in 85th. German guy Jan Rus, 88th. Antoine Menard, 91st. Rafael Gennari, Rafael, one of the players from the winning Team World Championships. Peter Dunn of England was inside the top 100. Well done, God Save the Queen, and all that. 101st, Cynic Kim, we're delighted to meet him, as I said earlier. Down into the 110s, you find Viraj Panchacharyan from Thailand in 112th. Yes, I've practiced that one. 113th, Sebastian Thaler, former Rookie of the Year. Tina Rus was here, another top 8, first-time top 8 at his first Pro Tour in Valencia. He finished 118th. And you know a bit about Stan van der Velden, kind of a Belgian guy living in Netherlands now.
Netherlands player living in Belgium, yeah.
Oh, other way around, okay.
Yep, back on tour. Nervous guy on the first day of competition. His name wasn't on the invite list. Had to get that fixed up. Came rushing up and saying, "Where's Scott Larrabee? I got to talk to him."
Yeah, you don't like that at all. 135th, Fried Mulders. In 136th, a name from my home country to watch out for, or at least half of it, Matteo Orsini Jones. He is one part of a brother partnership. Marco Orsini Jones did very well at Grand Prix Florence. Matteo has already qualified at a PTQ for Hollywood, so he will be back again with more experience. Managed a 3-3 record, so you know that's the kind of thing that when you start your Pro Tour career, you're quite happy with, and you hope to come back another day and maybe go one better. And 4-2 would have seen him in to another draft. As we follow down, 150th. Makahito Mahara. Chris Lackman was 154th. And then as we head further down, Tsuyoshi Fujita, 173rd, Rovan Hazevak, 177, and some big names at 178, 179, and 180. Bas Postema of the Netherlands, Shayoti Yasuoka from Japan, and Tiago Chan of Portugal, just above Antonino De Rosa in 182nd place. All right, well, it looks like we're just about ready to rock and roll with Game 3. No one will win the Pro Tour this game. Yep. And no one will like mulliganing once again. And this time it's Pascaly who shuffles them up and says, I'm going back to square one.
He did have a tough hand on whether or not to decide to mulligan that. He had what looked like enough mountains, but no swamps sitting on a black card. And you really can't afford to keep a hand that didn't have the early drops like you needed. John Finkel, on the other hand, hasn't had to declare a mulligan. Of course, when you mulligan, the player playing first has to declare, and then the player playing second gets to declare. It looks like Finkel might have a decision to make on whether to mulligan. He's got 5 planes, a Kifkin Harbinger, and the Mosquito Guard. Mosquito Guard would give him a 1-drop, of course, but he would miss a 2-drop.
All right.
Of course, missing a 2-drop and then following up with 3-drop into Kifkin Zephyronaut or Kinsbale Balloonist or Weisensend. A lot of good plays for him there.
I was chatting with one of the staff at the Pro Shop about the sleeves because it was the first time she'd been here, and she said, I was just amazed at the number of sleeves that went out the door. And I said, things have really changed there. It used to be just a real fashion accessory, and now pretty much everyone plays in sleeves. And these Magic the Gathering ones, they're kind of funky.
Yeah, a lot of people were excited at the local store I played at when I brought some home from Valencia, and they said, where can you get those? And as far as I know, the Pro Shop's the only place that you can get them at, and they're very good. Ooh, John hit his 2-drop, the Kinsbale Skirmisher. Perfect 2-drop for him.
2 mountains.
Pascaly shaking his head after he draws.
That was body language and no mistake. Well, Sunfire Shaman, but no third land. All right, Finkel. Can he capitalize?
Looks like John drew another land.
Yep. And now he must decide. Will he offer an apparent trade?
Happy to get in with the Mosquito Guard.
Yep.
Trade that 1-drop for the 2-drop. It's always good when you can trade up a creature you paid less mana for than your opponents.
Explain why. Yeah, what's the deal with that?
Well, it means they spend a lot more mana trading resources, so it's you're trading up, is what they call that.
Okay, fair enough. Kifkin Harbinger, now, does he go Wiz and Send?
Yeah,
presumably, because this is like the aggro start.
Yep. That's part of the reason he didn't get in with that Kinsbale Skirmisher. By playing the Send next turn, he'll have a 3/3 bashing into that Sunflare elemental.
Yeah.
And that will force his opponent to heavily consider whether or not he should block the Mosquito Guard.
If you're Pascaly, you really want to land pretty soon.
Or Tarfire, or Aglight sending with the Swan.
Well, what you've drawn is Release the Ants, which is quite good with, 10 mana and a 6 casting cost spell on top. Yep. Not so hot with 2 mana up.
No, it would allow him to potentially get to 4 mana and try to win the Release the Ants clash. It's one of those interesting cards, actually. You mentioned in the early coverage that that was one of the exciting cards you wanted to see if an opponent was at 3 life.
Yeah.
Release the Ants, win the clash. Andre Coimbra, a Portuguese player, was the 0-2 bracket, wound up playing against a Brit, your own Stuart Wright, in the 3rd round in the feature match area. That's actually how he exited the tournament.
Yeah.
Stuart managed to hit on the Release the Ants clash and got him from 2 life.
Yes, Andre Coimbra said he hadn't really done an awful lot of work for this one. That shorthand fought none, and he kind of paid the price for that. Had some interesting card choices in his deck, and when you die to Release the Ants like that, you kind of feel maybe the Magic gods aren't smiling on me this year.
Yep. Mario Pascaly opted to use the Release the Ants on the Mosquito Guard. Interesting choice to do it on his main phase. By clashing, he knows his opponent has a 2-drop on top, so he is slightly less likely to win, but his opponent's also tapped out, so he's got no tricks he can play to save the 1/1, and he guarantees that it hits the Ben.
There's your swamp.
Yep, he saw that on top and left it.
Yep.
Can be rough when you win the clash and you have to leave the land on top. Normally you like to clash that card to the bottom so you can improve your draw step, but it doesn't get much better for him in that draw. He really needs that land to get out back ahead.
One little red monster on the left. 3 increasingly threatening white monsters on the right.
The red one gets a lot more threatening when there's some elementals in the graveyard causing those 2-for-1s, but right now there are not, so it's not that scary.
Pascali continues to ponder, and I'm not talking one blue.
Speaking of ponder, we were speaking with coverage head Greg Collins, who talked to John in between matches a little bit and said that John, after realizing he was going to have to play Pascoli, regretted taking a ponder during the draft over a Wings of Velasvel he had the opportunity to grab. Seems like that could have been a real big difference in this matchup, although he did get a Shields of Velasvel, if I recall, for his sideboard to counter Thundercloud Shaman.
Right, so the theory being that if he had the Wings of Velasvel, Thundercloud Shaman could go, well, for 2 or for 3, and instead Finkel goes, well, my guy's a 4/4 flyer.
Sure.
So essentially it's a counterspell.
Yep, and the great thing about John Finkel is that he read that Pascoli would wind up with the Chandra Nalar,
Yes. Yeah.
according to Greg. One of the hardest working men on the Pro Tour, very rarely seen in front of the cameras.
He won't do it. He won't do it. I say, can I interview you for the audio coverage? He's like, no, I'm too good looking for the audio coverage. So,
Flamekin Harbinger hits. Going to be interesting to see if Pascoli finds an elemental to put on top there, or whether he just skips it to try to hit the land instead. Could hit a Banneret. Scott Johns from the floor pointing out that would reduce the mana cost of some of the cards in his hand. Although it does decrease the chance that he does hit that land. Sometimes that can be more important. It looks like he's just going to miss on the find. So not taking Scott's hint to heart.
So 12 to 20. The mechanics of the game continue. Finkel untaps. There we go. There's a spring in his step at the moment as well.
Mm-hmm.
Draws.
So Sunflare Shamans really do a number on that combat step, as we see John's hand sitting on at least 2 planes.
It looks like he's got Senzair as well. Is that a coordinated barrage in his hand?
I couldn't tell for sure, but he definitely does have the Senzair.
All right, so
Yeah,
we're going. Yes, that's fine, says Mario. I'm not sure he means that's fine, but he's saying, yeah, that's fine.
It's not too bad for him, because the Sunflare Shaman now is a 2-for-1. Can kill the... Ooh, was that the
Preeminent Captain
Yeah,
and
wow.
sends air. And there is some shifting in the arena at that play.
Oof, boy, that changes things with that Sunflare Shaman. You thought it was going to hit the Wisensen, but not knowing what John's got in his hand, it might be forced to take out the Preeminent Captain early. Of course, that puts him in a real bad spot, especially with the Senzair potentially getting big.
Okay.
1 card. Use 3.
Yeah.
This is a pretty strange game yet again, when we saw that, again, Pascali seemed to be well in it with four red monsters on the left against 2 and 3 on the right, and then suddenly, no, not happening.
Yep, that last game was definitely interesting. This one's turning out to be a bit of a romp, just because Pascoli got short on those lands the first couple turns. So
okay, we're just hearing incidentally that comment about the Wings of Velasvel. No, it was the Shields of Velasvel that he passed up. So in that sense, an even truer counterspell for Thundercloud Shaman.
absolutely,
Yeah.
It's not just that it gives the creatures +0/+1, but the fact that it turns them all into giants, nullifying the Thundercloud effect.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
So, Preeminent Captain, and out comes
6/6.
bonus monster, and Senzair 6/6.
Yep.
Pascali at 10, facing 5 men in the red zone, 1 blocker. You've got to say, John Finkel's going to be just 1 game away.
Yep,
Yeah.
it looks like it. It's going to kill the Sen.
So you take
2, 3,
5.
5. You go 5.
Yeah, I take 5, I'm on 5. 4 monsters to
Good.
none.
Pretty close here. It's not looking good. That was a heck of a draw by John to hit that Great Heart when he had just the lands in his hand. 5 mana for Pascoli. Still believe has that makeshift mannequin in his hand.
So 5 to 20 is the score. Pascali took 5 that turn. There it is.
A Thundercloud Shaman would buy him a little bit of time. He'd kill 2 of John's creatures and give him a 4/4 body to block. That might put John on the back foot by forcing him to try to hit a few creatures to swarm. But yeah, that was hitting the soldier for the Preeminent Captain was pretty solid.
So Fester Creep.
Fester Creep, very good. That could nullify two of the creatures again.
Kid.
Yes, he's going to probably have to do this earlier rather than later because he can't let the Senzo attack, can he?
No, and looks like he's gonna do it in his upkeep. He couldn't do it on his turn and risk getting the Surge of Thought Wealth out of John's hand if he happened to have it, simply because if he does, he's gonna miss. He's gonna take 2 extra damage from the attackers by not doing it on his opponent's turn. So he'll do it now. The Kithkin Harbinger will be a 0/2 until end of turn. The Preeminent Captain will simply be a 1/1, and he'll be at 4, barring any shenanigans from John.
Yep.
Looks like John ripped another Plains. Oh, we got another creature. That's a 2/2. The Fester Creep's not going to affect it.
So that is 3 damage. Puts Pascaline down to 2. Still facing 3 monsters to none. Are we going to see the shuffle up of the permanents? Well, I passed the turn. Violet Pool, does that keep him alive? If he's got that?
Attack.
At 2 life. Here's 5. Yeah, it's Violet Pool.
Yep, he's going to kill the Preeminent Captain.
Before it can attack.
Well,
Yep.
Sure, take 1.
Yep. So a block. He takes 1. He's on 1.
another one. Oh.
Here we go, 7.
There's a
that didn't
Harriet.
look.
So,
Pascoli was not happy
any
about
answers,
that.
Mr.
Draw
Pascoli?
from the top.
No.
No, not
2-1 to John Finkel. The Shadow Mage Infiltrator is just 1 game away. Brian David Marshall, wish you were here? Some, I suspect. But your boy is doing it. He is doing it right here and right now. And Mario Pascoli is going to have to come out and rely on every resource known to Magic Man if he is going to come back from here.
Absolutely.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take you down onto the floor to 5-time Proto Top 8er Scott Johns, working for Wizards. He's responsible for a lot of the content on MagicTheGathering.com, and it looks like John's off for a little bathroom break. So Scott, let's have a little chat with you and tell us what your perceptions of the final are, how you think it's going. You're right there with the players. How are they taking things?
Like what I'm going to, pardon me, I'm actually moving over a little bit because John's just passing me as he's off to the restroom.
Okay, off we go. So what do you got for us, Scott? What are your thoughts on the match at the moment?
Now that it's just us, as I'm watching this, there's really, I think, 2 key things that Finkel's deck is creating on this matchup. And I've been taking turns standing behind each of the players and being able to see their hand and seeing, from their perspective, I mean, it's how I see it, but seeing from their perspective what it looks like when there's mana open, what it looks like when there isn't mana open. And there's a really difficult thing here for Pascali because Finkel's creatures are so good, and there's so many of them, that there's no way he's ever actually going to be able to just charge in and be the beatdown early on. So his role is defined right off the bat, whereas Finkel's deck is much more flexible. You can have a game like you just had right there, where he can come burning out of the gates, or you can have a game where he's clearly set up right now. If he needs to play the Attrition War, you see things like using bounce spells. He's saving bounce spells for the late game to save his key creatures against removal, as opposed to in earlier matches where bounce spells are tempo weapons, right? He's made those adjustments. And one of the key things here, because his deck is so much more flexible, and you have a player of John's caliber, that you're just giving him that many more different ways to be able to find wins based on the combination of what he's got and what his opponent has. Now, the other thing I'm really noticing is the way these decks match up. At any given time, because of what's in each deck, Pascali has to be as efficient as possible with almost any of his removal. There's really no bluffing he can do. When he kills something with a Lash Out and then he leaves a black open, like you can often tell, okay, he must have a Pepper Smoke or he must have this other spell. So, I mean, if somebody like me is able to watch and figure out what's going on, I have no doubt Finkel can figure out his whole hand. Whereas when you're sitting on the other side of the table, Finkel's deck is set up very well that it doesn't mean anything when the mana is open. There could be a creature coming, there could be a trick coming. It's very, very difficult for Pascali to figure out how best to try and take advantage because Finkel's deck isn't giving him any information, and obviously Finkel as a player isn't. I think all of those things combine to make it a very difficult set of things to overcome.
Okay, let me ask you this. We've got Mario Pascoli sitting there alone at the moment. Is this to his advantage that he gets a couple of minutes away from that intimidating presence? Or does this moment here where John Finkel comes back and you sit there and think, oh, God, here he comes again? Which way does that go?
It works both ways. In my experience, when you're in this kind of situation, whether you're a newer player or whether you're more established, you've got to be a guy like John Finkel when you're in this match, and
Let's
you
see if I
know
can
that.
establish
So
some
I don't know that
cards
it
now.
makes a difference because he's clearly in it and he's fighting and he's going to do his best. So I don't know that it makes any difference because he knows in his heart if he's going to be the champion of this event, he's going to have to be the guy that beats John Finkel.
All right, well, thanks very
And
much
that
for
game
that,
was actually
Scott.
very good.
We
I did
could
5
be
points and-
just one game away from the crown.
I can
Or
carry-
can
I can
Mario
survive the game
Pascali
if you
come back
don't do
and
two
force a
defeats in
fifth
a row.
and deciding game?
Maybe.
Would be quite an epic finish to an already epic Pro Tour.
Absolutely, and I love the fact that someone like John comes into a tournament and says, well, effectively, top 8 is my initial goal. That's where I start off. It's not, you talk to a lot of the European pros, and I don't mean that specifically as the European. I think a lot of pros would say, I would like to start off with top 32, as that's the baseline. And then I would like top 16. And clearly, if I can make top 8, well, that's a great weekend, thank you. And who knows what happens from there? It's matchup dependent, it's draft dependent. You know, is it my lucky day? And I don't think anyone seriously, when they get to the top 8, says, of course I'm going to win because I'm clearly better than these other 7, especially in limited. You can have a look at matchups in constructed.
Yeah.
But at limited, you come in and you say, I've made the final table, I have a crapshoot with everyone else,
Yep.
I'm very good at Magic, they're very good at Magic, let the dice fall. But Pascali, here he is, 2-1 down.
Good luck.
What resources does he have left?
Well, he's still got a favorable matchup in regards
good
to
luck.
deck, just because we haven't seen Chandra Nalar yet, we haven't seen the Thundercloud Shaman, so he definitely has some good cards that we just haven't seen yet. Of course, John Finkel, not going to let something like that get in his way if he can help it.
All right.
Yeah, keep this up.
Pascali really hasn't yet, except in the game that he won, established control and then turned that into a situation where he could win. And that's the type of thing he needs to do, sort of like we saw with Marcio Carvalho. Those viewers viewing at home, we got a couple forum posts asking about the Q&A session with Chris Galvin and Scott Larrabee, and whether there was going to be some coverage on that on the online coverage. There is actually an article up about that, so if people are interested to see what happened, you can read that on the Pro Tour Kuala Lumpur coverage on MagicTheGathering.com. Lead with a
Wizened
Sen, yep.
Up against 5 Ellie Changeling.
A couple posters on the forums didn't like my pronunciation of that card. We've had one person say it's pronounced Harbinger is pronounced Harbinger, and we've had one say it's pronounced Harbinger.
Okay, well, I've got bad news for you. My wife's a linguist. I'm pulling rank. It's Harbinger, and it's Wizened Sen. That's the deal. I also had a chat with Doug Bayer back at Wizards HQ, talking about cards like Revelark and Kolfina's plans and so on, as he went through some of the listings of the cards. And I did think that Vendilion Clique, which sounded very French and sophisticated, it turns out that's 3 fairies' names. So Vendilion it is, Vendilion Clique. So thanks to Doug Bayer for those. Preeminent Captain comes down for Finkel.
Good turn 3 play. Lash Out's been used up on the Wizened Sin.
Well done. Oh, and from the floor, utterly nailed, Scott says, yes, that'll be Doug Bayer. I didn't ask him how to pronounce his name. I asked him about the cards. Oh, dear.
Interesting position. We might be
Yeah.
watching a mistake by
Oh, it was first strike.
Pascali. Yep, it looks like he forgot the
Still-
preeminent captain has first strike. That's a
Oh.
little awkward.
Oh,
But you know,
Yes.
people make mistakes. You'll have to shake that off.
they do. And that is potentially the first mistake all day
Yeah.
by Pascali. Now, come on,
Good.
put yourself together.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little shake of the head, a little, what did I do that for? Well, you're in the Pro Tour final against arguably the greatest player that ever lived. Maybe that's why you did it.
He knows when this is over, he's going to get a bit of a pinched cheek from his buddies watching from the Italians.
But they're also going to really embrace him because he's done a fantastic job and a
Yes.
real contributor to this final already.
Absolutely.
And by no means gone.
He's got a big payday coming his way. He's cute for Hollywood. Should put him cute for Berlin, too, I believe. And you really can't complain. Little things like that get in the way sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's $20,000 for losing this game of Magic, if you do.
Yep.
So that's no disaster by any stretch of the imagination.
And you're talking about a brand new set in Morningtide with a rare that you don't get to see. So it's presumable he hasn't had a lot of table time with the preeminent captain.
Absolutely.
Honest mistake.
So, Kithkin Harbinger. Out it comes. Now, we already know the Wizened Sen has been used up, so what's plan B? Is it going to be something like a balloonist? I notice in Finkel's hand he has the Pestamite.
Could get the balloonist. You could.
Yeah.
Looks like he's going to get the
That's a win.
balloonist.
He goes for balloonist. What wouldn't Mario Pascali give for Final Revels?
Oh man, that would be very good right here. John would still have the Harbinger in play, but
Your turn.
That is Goldman Harrier, and Finkel is coming out in the most savage fashion. Pascali at 15, Finkel at 18, but 15 is going to go down like a rocket.
yep. And Pascali's got to be upset with himself about losing that creature even more than he was, because it would have been able to give his 2/2 first strike, which would have been really important in dealing with combat right here. So tough play. Pascoli flipping through a couple swamps in his hand. Those are not going to help him. He needs more mountains than anything.
Final of PT. What mistake? I'm immortal.
It's the final of a PT, and he says to himself, "You've done so
I'm an
well, my
idiot."
Italian friend. Come on. Keep in the game." He looks at his hand. He's got a pepper smoke, a couple of land. There's a red spell peeking out at the back there. Is that a Soul Bright Flamekin?
Or a Sunflare Shaman. Look like
Yes.
Yeah, it looks like the Sunflare.
Yep. And even Thundercloud Shaman isn't going to particularly help Mario Pascoli now, because, of course, the Shapeshifter is what went to the bin in that play error.
Yep.
There's a fifth land.
His
He scoops!
concede. Wow, that was a surprise. What an ending to this
is
Pro Tour.
the end of business. John Finkel, the Shadow Mage Infiltrator, is your champion. Wow, that is just astonishing that he came here. He targeted this limited Pro Tour, the first of the season. He said, I can do well at this event. I'm not worried about going to standard or extended, but limited is my game. You can change the cards as much as you like. Limited is limited, and my talent at limited is unlimited. Whoa, my goodness me. The man, he is just looking stunned. He can hardly believe it, and he's one of the most likely to do it, and he is just looking stunned. John Finkel, the man who has accomplished everything in the game, stands there and just goes, oh my lord, I am the champion once again. Now listen, if you want to be in one of those two seats in the final, so I've got to tell you, this is the Dream Factory. Get down to your local F&M. The champion of Pro Tour Kuala Lumpur 2008 is John, the Shadow Mage Infiltrator, Finkel.
Someone get Kai Buddha on the phone.
Oh, hi there. That was just stunning. The Kithkin deliver. 3 rounds of draft. He drafted Kithkin pretty much all the way, had a blue-white drafter to his left in Ming Shi of China. It didn't matter. They had 2 different archetypes. We liked his deck. We weren't sure it was going to win, but Guillaume Wafatapu first up, 3-zip pretty comfortably, despite the deck not going particularly well. Round 2, he faces Marcio Carvalho, solid pro, and there 3-1 he gets through. And finally, faces the Italian Mario Pascoli, who you cannot say enough about. That one tiny slip, erase it from your mind, both Mario Pascoli and you at home. Honestly, when you are a couple of turns away against the best in the world from ending a Pro Tour, it happens to the best of us, it really does.
Absolutely, and he had such a great weekend.
He has done amazingly. Like I say, if this whets your appetite for competitive Magic, what you need to do is get down to your local store, get down to your local Friday Night Magic. It's a great place to meet people to play. You will see them playing with those cards. Kinsbell Balloonists coming over, Chandra Nalar putting people to 0, Lash Out winning the Clash. This is going on around your country right now. So when you finish watching us and you've caught up on your sleep if you're in Europe, that's what you need to do. Get to your F&M. From there, it's a simple path to the PTQ. Now, from the PDQ to the PT, that's a little bit tougher, right, Bill?
Yeah, but boy, is there a great payoff when you get there. And man, having the opportunity to be in this building today, watching this Pro Tour Top 8 unfold, what an exhilarating experience, especially if you've won a PTQ and Wizards is paying for your train ticket.
And if you've got some time spiral at home and you just dig out the Shadow Mage Infiltrator and you look at the face, well, you've just watched that man win this Pro Tour.
And arguably take the title of best Magic player of all time. Kai Buddha may have more top 8s, but John Finkel coming back from beyond dead with the Hall of Fame being selected to that her great honor, and then coming back and being the first Hall of Fame player, and deservedly so, to win a Pro Tour after being selected. I can't imagine a more climactic climax to this weekend. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and so a fantastic quarters, semis, and final. You could not have scripted it better from right at the beginning of the tournament. He came in, he said, I want top 8, he made it, and then he made it count. And that is how a Hall of Famer goes about his business. John Finkel, the past of Magic. John Finkel, the present of Magic. And John Finkel, very probably the future of Magic. It has been a great privilege to be with you. We are ready for the award ceremony. So here is the tournament organizer, Mr. Scott Larrabee.
Hello and welcome to the 2008 Pro Tour Kuala Lumpur Award Ceremony. Assisting me today will be head judge Toby Elliott. Just a few awards that were already presented earlier. In fourth place, winning $15,000 from China, Ming Shi. And in third place, winning $15,000 from Portugal, Marcio Carvalho. And now help me welcome the finalists, winning $20,000 from Italy, Mario Pascoli. Let's hear it one more time for the finalist of 2008 Pro Tour Kuala Lumpur, Mario Pascoli. And now help me welcome the now three-time Pro Tour champion, 2008 Pro Tour Kuala Lumpur champion, winning $40,000 from the United States, John Finkel. Let's hear it again for the 2008 Pro Tour Kuala Lumpur champion, John Finkel. A final thanks to all the players, staff, and judges that they made this such a great Pro Tour. We will see you May 23rd to 25th for Pro Tour Hollywood. Thank you very much, and good night.